4:30, Lisa has let us, me know, and some of the rest of you as well, that she won't be able to make it this evening, so I think we're ready for the roll call.
Very good. Franklin?
Here.
Gasker?
Here?
Gilbert?
Here.
King? And Paul.
Here.
All right, we can begin. I'd ask for a motion to approve our amended agenda for a moment. I want to apologize for poor choice of words here. I talked a little bit about this with Scott. Traffic surveillance camera guidelines. That's poor phrasing on my part. We're not talking about you know, I'm thinking of those cameras that are license plate readers, as the chief has, discussed with us before. I don't want to conjure visions of some drone floating over the city, or something like that. But these are just those cameras that would be used at major entry and exit points in the city, right?
Correct.
Okay, so maybe we should, I don't know if we want to reword that, or we're talking about license plate readers.
Well, it'll be in the minutes.
Okay, fine. So as long as we got that clear. Then I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
So moved by Gordon. Is there a second? Second by Nadine. Okay. All those in favor, signify.
Did you want to amend it to include the discussion on the start time of the meeting?
Yes. Oh, I thought I didn't. You said you were going to have that in here.
Well, it would be, since the agenda's been out, you have to amend the agenda.
Oh, I mean, pardon me. Point taken. Okay, then I'd ask for one amendment, and that is to add, let's make that item number 3. Well, no, item number 2, on new business.
Yes.
So discussing when our meeting time is going to be.
Yeah,
going
just-
forward.
I move we approve the agenda.
All right, thank you very much. Do we need another second?
Yes.
Second, Kate, again. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
So you take a vote to approve the agenda.
Oh, okay. I thought we just did that.
No, you-
I'll ask for motion to approve the agenda as amended. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's right.
We can do it again. Okay.
Oh, I believe you approve the amendment and then you approve the agenda with the change.
All right, okay, can we have a motion, can we have a voice vote on that then?
So what have we done?
You've added item new business 2. Now you're approving the agenda with that.
I move we approve the agenda with that change.
In favor? Aye. Any? No, okay, so let's do it.
You need to vote.
We did. I just asked for a vote. All right, I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our December 7th, 2021 meeting.
I move we approve the agenda, approve the minutes.
All right. Any discussion, second on that? Any discussion, any corrections, additions, anything like that? No. All right, then thanks very much. We have anyone in our,
Wait, we need to vote.
that's all? We have anyone in our audience here who would like to address an issue that's not on our agenda?
I'll wait till the agenda item comes up.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. Then, the first item we'll take up is this, Chief, if you would, on those license plate readers.
No.
No, we amended the agenda where we switched that around. We switched that around so that, so that the chief can go see a safe place that.
Again, I appreciate you guys making the compromise. Awesome. So I guess in general, I know it says an update on the license plate reader. So I guess I'm gonna give you a more of a, as far as when they'll be operational type update. So we've been unfortunately dealing with pretty much every other export-import situation that everybody else has been dealing with. So because it's been we haven't had a surplus in computer chips, so cars have been delayed. So have things like cameras. So we actually looks like that our cameras are actually en route, and hopefully we'll have some type of installation process going on probably before the end of the month. So we're just going to still leave it as tentative, but that's what we're hoping for. So it's been a while, and at the end of the day, we've made some calls to the company. There's really nothing they can do, so we kind of been at the mercy of whatever the pandemic, basically. So so we're looking forward to that. But going forward, like I said, I know I've kind of explained this probably a couple of times about license plate readers, what they really are, what they aren't. So one of the things I want to go through, and we have a tentative policy that we have still working on, trying to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row as far as a policy that will kind of really explain exactly what they are and what they do, and I know people have fear of facial recognition. There's no software in the system that we use that we have purchased that'll have facial recognition. So I know that's kind of one of the biggest concerns. But I will just go down the list so you have better understanding. So at this time, like I said, the license plate readers are for official law enforcement investigations. All right. So, and at the end of the day, that is really the crux of this whole matter is, official law enforcement investigations, and and a lot of those things that a lot of people would like to know. It's like, well, what are those type of events? So, just to give you a few, now this could, like I said, this list could be a little bigger, but there are a lot of components when you talk about investigations. So you have to kind of, have to really think outside the box a lot of times with this. But just to give you an example, a subject who is on outstanding arrest warrant. That would be something that, the license plate reader would be able to pick up on. Missing persons. So you get amber alerts for children, silver alerts for elderly, and then also, we can also, if someone put in a missing person who was missing, involuntarily. So that means that some foul play was involved. So that would be someone who was kidnapped, who was of the age, who's, could be put in the system, and that person, the license plate reader would get a hit on that if that information was put into the system. And another example would be a person who was wanted by a law enforcement agency who are of interest in a specific investigation. So meaning someone who is a suspect in a homicide. So he was either seen at the scene, left the scene, let's say, and I'll give you an example, in a blue Ford Taurus with a partial plate of Robert Sam David, RSD. That would be put in the system by the host agency, meaning the agency where the crime occurred. So at that point, the hit would come off of that partial plate, which is Robert Sam David, and the description of the vehicle. So the license plate is actually identifies the plate, but it can also, it'll take a picture of the vehicle, and it also reads, and it can, depending on lighting and your overhead lighting, depending on if it's during the night, during the day, you can have a different outcome. But also configuration of tail lights. So that's how you can kind of determine what type of make or model the vehicle is. Fords are, I think, I don't know if you guys really study cars that well, but I can look at the tail light of a vehicle, I know if it's a Mercedes, if it's a BMW, they just have their own different configuration. So that's one component of it. So that's how we can kind of match up the two. So just give you another example. Let's say there was an armed robbery, and a witness said, hey, it was a white pickup, could have been a Ford, and they actually give us the plate. So we can put that plate in the system. We can also put in white Ford pickup. So the good thing about that is that it filters that vehicle That way we're not looking for a white sedan, because we know what the witness said it was a white pickup. So that we get rid of the white sedans, we get rid of the white minivans, you know, we're looking for a white pickup. And so that's how you kind of filter the search. So if you have that much information, so it's all going to be depending on the witness at the time of the incident, and the more information we have, of course, the better, you know, the license plate reader will help. So to give you an idea of how that would work, license plate reader would get, like I said, if a car comes through the license plate reader, there will be a hit that would go to our communications division. So now you have dispatchers who are down there, and they're going to get an audible tone to let them know that there is a felonious vehicle in our town. So this car could be wanted for homicide put in by Aurora. Okay, so let's just give you an example. Aurora PD puts in a license plate of a vehicle that was used in a homicide. It comes through DeKalb's license plate readers. That audible signal will go to the communications division. Our dispatchers would read that and then put that out to the officers in the field and give them a location of what license plate reader it came through. So now the officers still have to do their job. They have to scramble and still try to make contact with that vehicle and still take that subject into custody. So all it's doing is notifying us that it's in DeKalb. Within a certain parameter of the area, because we can at least say it came through the license plate reader to say in Annie Glenn and Hillcrest. So all those officers who are in that general area and other officers who are not, the ones that are not are going to respond to that area. The ones who are already in that area are going to be on the lookout. So, and when you, in a lot of terms, you will hear BOLO. BOLO is just acronym for be on the lookout. So it means be on the lookout for this type of vehicle. So we'll have BOLOs that'll come through. Like I said, the dispatchers will read it. They'll dispatch it out to the rank and file. The officers will respond. And once they locate the vehicle, they'll try to take them into custody without incident, meaning without pursuit, and hopefully without any other, you know, use of force. But like I said, a lot of times, just to give you an example, the Illinois State Police have license plate readers on the interstate. Now, they have gotten, if you go through at night, they can have hundreds and hundreds of hits. So if you put a license plate reader 290 westbound in Damon, stolen vehicles go through there, they could have hundreds in a night. It depends on the position of the LPR, and it depends on the area you actually have it in. So, I mean, of course, you're talking about expressway system when you have thousands and thousands of cars going through hourly. So, now it's going to be a little bit less robust here because we're talking about a smaller community that won't have as much traffic. So, but it is very effective. We had now we don't have the cameras up, but our investigators were able to locate a vehicle that was involved in a crime. Now we didn't have license plate readers, but what happened was we do have access to the database. And we have a tow truck who actually has license plate readers on their vehicles. So some of the tow companies purchase this for themselves, so they have it on their vehicles mobile. So that car got picked up by a tow truck. Now, we had no idea where this car was at, but because of the license plate reader of the tow truck, we were able to locate that vehicle through their reader. So that was actually, and we had no idea where this car was at. I mean, and that's the benefit of the license plate readers, because it gives us eyes when we don't have eyes. We can't be at every location and every time. So when we have felonious vehicles or vehicles that involve in some type of criminal investigation or ambulance, like I said, silverers, those are two of, you're talking about, with a missing child, missing elder, those are two of the most significant, criteria are. Look how many lives we can save and how many children we can find, and, especially with elderly wanting to raise, get vehicles, they drive off, and you just never know where they are. So there's a lot of good things that this license plate reader program is going to do for the city of DeKalb, but I just wanted to make sure that people had a little bit better understanding of, like I said, of what it can and cannot do and what it's not made for. So it's not made for moving violations. It's not a red light camera. This is not a speeding camera. That's not what it's there for. There's no way for us we won't know the speed of a car that comes through. It's not configured that way. If you want a speed camera, you have to actually buy a speed camera. And the same thing with red light enforcement. You see those in different cities throughout the state. We don't have those at all. So at the end of the day, this is really, like I said, it's based off criminal law enforcement investigations and or the amber alerts and the silver alerts and those type of situations. So I think at the end of the day, I think the community will be pretty happy with the progress that this will bring as far as interdicting criminal activity in the city. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
Chief, if I
Sure.
may, my concern, I appreciate your explanation for those that are here that may not have heard the
Sure.
rationale for it before, something like that. But my concern is with the written policy.
Mm-hmm.
I want to put people's fears to work.
Sure.
Some time ago, when Chief Lowry was chief, there was a proposed ordinance that would allow the police department to break up gatherings, without,
Yes.
and so forth and so on. And, our response at that time was, Chief, we trust you, but you're not going to be the chief of police until the end of the world.
Correct.
So what do we have on paper?
So that's what I read to you off of. This is a draft.
Okay.
So there is a policy already in place. We're just making sure that there are a few other things we still want to add. Now, we didn't reinvent the wheel here. There are a lot of agencies who already have policies up. Illinois State Police has a policy up. So, and we do that pretty much anytime we, put a document together. It's a policy-driven document.
Sure.
It's that we want to see what other people have written. We want to see what other people are doing in their town. See if it, if it fits with our posture here in the city of DeKalb. So we, this is a working document right now that I'm reading off of. So, once this is finalized, of course, it'll be open access to everyone. So anybody wants to read it.
I think we could really appreciate that, because I don't think any of us doubt the value if there's a holdup at a convenience store.
Sure.
And you get a call, the guy was in a red, Ford, and there's a CD9, I think, on the license plate.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can find out they went that way,
Yes,
as opposed to who knows where, that's great.
it is.
But I do think people are apprehensive. about,
Sure, I understand.
Is this gonna, I've got parking tickets at the Elbert
Yes,
station,
yes.
whatever it is,
And I guess that's why I wanted to make sure that people understood that, the parking tickets is not a criminal investigation. There's no criminal nexus to the parking tickets,
Right.
on its face. So that doesn't bother. That's not even a problem. In my eyes, if you haven't committed a criminal act, this doesn't really affect you. The only way this, affects you is if you committed a criminal act. If you were involved in a felonious act, if you were if there was a shooting, let's say it was a mass shooting or something in the area. Now, if all the cars that were there, over the summer we had pop-up parties here. So imagine that, if there was a pop-up party and there were shots fired in that party. Now, the advantage to that is that anybody that leaves that area, we might not, by the time law enforcement arrives, pretty much all the witnesses, everybody who could have been involved have already left that area for the most part, because unless we have an officer who was sitting right there when it occurred, which doesn't always happen. But at the end of the day, those cars have already left the scene. So the good thing about that is we can go back at least just for that area and say what vehicles fled the scene out of there. Now, some of them could be witnesses, which is fine. At the end of the day, we're going to be able to investigate that and say, okay, you were at the scene of this, now we have to decipher if you were a witness, or are you a co-offender, are you a victim? There's a lot of things that can be done there. But that's only specifically because that's a criminal investigation now. There's a crime scene, there's a criminal investigation going on there. So I think at the end of the day, is going to be beneficial for us as far as law enforcement to be able to solve this crime when we didn't on view it. So when I say on view, I mean that officer was there, saw this offender get out of this white car and go over there and shoot this person. So that rarely happens, and if it does, of course, that's a different scenario. I mean, a lot of this information we talk about now won't come into play because we have an officer who actually saw the offender and actually saw him commit the act and took him into custody. So that's, I mean, those cases just don't happen as frequent as people may think. So, so my only concern here is that, I just want to, ease the community's mind when it comes to what these license plate readers are. They just, at the end of the day, the agencies who have these have seen improvement, like I said, with solving crimes, especially violent crime in their town. It can serve as a deterrent for criminals to come in this town and commit violent offenses to anyone in this community. And at the end of the day, I think we're taking the right steps at an appropriate time to start moving in this direction. But I understand the worries. I mean, this is new technology. It's a lot that people don't know about. Everybody, and I understand that they worry about facial recognition. This is not here. We do not have facial recognition software on it. Like I said, this is not a red light camera. This is not a speed camera. And at the end of the day, if you commit a violent offense, then yes, this is going to be something you're going to have to deal with. And I'm hoping that, that it serves more as a deterrent than anything to keep violent offenders from coming into the city and come out to Cal and committing violent offenses to the residents of the city. So, but that's why we took a lot of time with this working document we have here. It's a lot of definitions and it explains a lot of things about what a bolo is. Which, like I said, which be on the lookout, and it explains, what can be put into the system, how the process goes, which I kind of went over pretty quickly about, how the audible signal is given to the dispatcher, who then distributes that out to the field, so the officers can respond. And to your point, without the license plate readers now, officers, so we had the same scenario, shots fired or armed robbery, let's say at the 7-Eleven, our officers respond, the witnesses give them a description of the vehicle. Without license plate readers, we really don't know which way to go. They can say, well, I saw him make a right turn, so officers go right, but where do you go from there? So now, I mean, it's just luck that the officers can triangulate and try to get in position and hopefully make a stop on this vehicle. As an officer who worked his whole career without this type of technology, I mean, you're basically looking for a needle in a haystack when that happens. You just happen to go down the right street at the right time and maybe you run up on this vehicle, which is great, but how often does that really happen? You have to be in a saturated area pretty quickly to make that contact without the license plate readers. Now, we've been doing that, and like I said, but we've been missing a lot of violent offenders who actually got through our net, and now we have to go look for them. We got to hope for a good witness. But with the license plate reader, we can say, hey, he came through here at this time. Even if we missed him, we can say, well, he crossed the license plate reader at Peach Road, let's say, and he's headed towards the interstate. So at least then, we can put out a bolo for the Illinois State Police to be on the lookout for our red pickup who committed an armed robbery at the 7-Eleven, and then they can make the apprehension, and then, of course, return back to the city.
I think that's great. My only hope would be that maybe at our next meeting, we can, Nadine's gonna get a call, I'm gonna get a call, Norton's gonna get a call.
Sure.
What's this about? What are these cameras doing, and so forth? And so I'd like a chance to at least look at that language.
Sure.
So we can say, well, no, this is how it works.
And I just did, and at the end of the day, this is, like I said, this is a working document. We feel pretty good about it, but we also want to make sure that we want to continue to talk to the providers, make sure that everything we have in our policy is exactly what this technology will do. And like I said, we spent a lot of time with this. Like I said, that's why we went to state police and there are a couple other departments we looked at who actually already have license plate readers, just to see what their policy look like. And we feel pretty comfortable with this, but we just want to do once more look over, and then
Sure.
and we want to talk to the manufacturer to make sure that we all on the same page. So,
Okay. Mark, and then Norton,
Yeah.
that's okay? Yeah.
I just want to get my public comment in here real quick. Chief, I appreciate you being here, and I always am thrilled with the work this committee does, because of all the committees that our town has. This committee seems to be the most focused and in-depth and willing to ask questions. So I'm glad to see that some questions are being asked, and the chief is here as well. And I've had some conversations with the chief regarding this program, and I think there's a lot of benefits that can be a part of this program if it is used properly. We want to get rid of the crime element. Everybody wants to do that. But as you mentioned, Joe, we still don't have a written set of rules, and you said you're considering some. Have you looked at any other towns as far as what they've done? Now, you said you've gotten from other departments, but other towns that have put this in, that have put through specific rules regarding the use of cameras, and I'll kind of run through my quick points, and I'll be done here. Who has access to the LPR data? That is critically important, because, as you know, people who may have access to this could use this to track people. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, but if you read articles on this, some people have done this in other states, not even in Illinois, but I've read some articles about how one political candidate used the LPRs to track his opponent's girlfriend, and where it was at a brothel or something like that. We don't have any brothels around here, at least maybe you know of, Chief.
No.
Hopefully we don't, but as far as using it for improper. So my question is, who is going to have access to the data from this? I was told by one alderman in an email that the data may not be limited to the police chief or the investigating officer. It could be the city manager, he assumed, might have access to this data. I find that problematic, so I hope this is going to be detailed in what you're proposing here as well. And another big question is, how long is the data going to be stored for? Because let's just say you're gone and a future police chief wants to see, where Joe's been going for the past 10 months, go back and look at the screen captures of the license plate. So that's a big issue. You told me that we have a policy in place for the body cameras,
Sure.
and it might be similar to this, but one of the aldermen told me it could be in the system for 5 years. So how long that data is going to be retained, I hope is going to be addressed in this. Regarding facial recognition, now, Chief, I believe you told me cameras will be better during the day as far as taking pictures of the vehicle at night, just because
Sure.
they have night-day difference. The problem is, you did indicate no facial recognition, but if you're able to take a picture of somebody in the front seat going through the drive-thru or right up to the intersection or whatever, you can then take that picture and run it through facial recognition. Maybe cameras won't pick that up, but at a later date, you could say, okay, was this Mark? Was he going through McDonald's again or what? So that's an issue as well. The other thing is, I think I pretty much covered, but the privacy concerns are my big concern. Like I said, like Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify. I don't think there's going to be any malintent, but I hope the language is going to be in there such that the public can view it prior to its installation, and this committee can view it prior to the installation to see the procedures that are in place and maybe ask some questions and make some revisions before we put this in place.
Agreed. And so I'll just kind of step by
Yes.
step. So,
I know there's lots.
no, I got you. So as far as policy, now, when we look at policy, we look at the police department, because that's our, that's what we're more concerned about. So every policy we looked at was law enforcement policy. Okay, so like I said, we looked at ISP, we looked at Addison Police Department, their Chicago CPD's their policy. So this is all based from the law enforcement side of the view of this, okay? And when it comes to privacy, this is law enforcement sensitive information. So that means that, this is within the ranks of the law enforcement the Cal Police Department, law enforcement community, same thing with Chicago Police Department. I cannot share, and I can't run your plate and give you the information. See what I'm saying? I'll get fired for that. That's illegal. All right, you can get charged for that. So I cannot do that. So the same thing is with this information. Most of this information is Lee's information. So and that's the state database, and NCIC, which is the federal database. Now that information is permanently in the system from Leeds and NCIC unless something is recovered. So Mark, if your car is stolen, your car is going to stay in that system until it's recovered. That's how it works. Now, once we recover your vehicle, then it's taken out of Leeds, it's taken out of NCIC. Only because we recovered his vehicle. If we never recovered, it's always going to be there. Okay, so until we recover. So, so I know the fear is about privacy. This is Leeds sensitive. Law enforcement sensitive information. You cannot access this. You have to have Leeds access to even get to this. Now, law enforcement officers have Leeds access, and the dispatchers have Leeds access. All right. So in our building, those are the only people who are going to have access to this. Okay. And to my point, anyone who passes on Leeds access or even federal access like that or information and is found out, they will be held accountable. And like I said, people in my history, I've seen people get fired for that immediately.
And I think that's good for the public to know. I mean, I think that's
Sure.
Since we have somebody from the press here that, if a city official, if a
Sure.
divorce attorney, if whoever it is comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to look at this,"
Can't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, throughout my career, believe me, I've dealt with this with other officers. When I was with ISP, I dealt with troopers, where Uncle Jim wants to know if he's suspended. So, come on, nephew, can you run my name? Well, no, he cannot. If he runs your name, he can be fired for that because he is disseminating information he's not supposed to because it's law enforcement sensitive. If you want to know if you're suspended, you go down to the Secretary of State, and then they'll tell you if you're suspended. You can't ask your law enforcement family member to run your name because if you do, that officer will get fired. So just to cover that with you, Mark, that won't happen. This is Leeds. This is law enforcement sensitive. This is Leeds information. This is NCIC, which is the federal database information. So we will not share that. Going back, I think you had the third question, Mark.
The question was length of time.
Thank you. Yep. So, like I said, as far as the Leeds and NCI information, it's permanent until it's removed. And the only reason it's removed is because Mark's car is recovered. If someone is wanted, he's taken into custody. He's taken out of Leeds and NCIC because he's already been arrested. So we don't want that person to stay in the system because he could be arrested and bailed out, and he could go back out, and they'll run him again, and it was like, well, you're wanted. He was like, well, I just got picked up, I paid my bond. Well, the system says you're wanted. So they don't have to take him through it all over again because they didn't remove him through NCIC and Leeds. But there's already a process, and our employees in the communications division, they know that. As soon as that person's picked up, we take him to custody, they remove him from Leeds, they remove him from NCIC, and he's out of the system, at least for that one offense. And if Mark's car is recovered, it's out of the system. We return the car back to Mark, it's out of the system, it's no longer in NCIC or Leeds. So we can't, so next time an officer runs Mark's car, it won't come up stolen anymore because it got recovered. So those type of entries will be permanent. Now, as far as the LPR information, there are a lot of different time frames people use. Most people use about 90-day window as a catch-all. So we're still looking at that. So 90 days might be the general time frame. A lot of departments are using that. So we just want to make sure that that's conducive for us as a 90-day window. So we're going to do, that's one of the things we really want to make sure that we're on kind of on the same framework as pretty much everyone that has this type of system. So now, of course, we could reduce this time frame or whatever, but it would be in the system once we make a decision of what that would be. So that would be available to of course, the HRC, and of course, every resident of the city of DeKalb. And Mark, I think you had last one.
No, those were the big ones.
Okay, yeah, and I, like I said, Mark's right, we talked about this several times, and I just want to continue to say that to me, this is beneficial for the city of DeKalb. This technology is we don't want to be behind in this technology. We want to be in front of this at the city of DeKalb. We're a progressive town, a lot of good things happen in the city of DeKalb. Big business coming here, Facebook, and at the end of the day, we want to be ahead when it comes to criminal, investigation and of course criminal interdiction in the city of DeKalb. And this is a big part of it. This is a major tool that we can use to prevent crime in the city of DeKalb. And like I said, I personally think it'll be a deterrent when offenders understand that if I get picked up on an LPR, I'm gonna have to get out of this area pretty quick because law enforcement is gonna be right on the tail. So I'm pretty excited about that component of it.
Two questions. Is the database just Illinois or is it national?
So that's why I said NCIC is a national database. So to give you an example, if Colorado, state of Colorado puts in a vehicle that was wanted in a homicide and they made it to Illinois and they crossed the license plate reader, we're gonna get hit on it, even though it started in Colorado. So, and that's because of the database. So that's the NCIC, which every time I run a plate, it goes through Leeds and it goes through NCIC. Every time. So it'll tell me now the way it works in Illinois, this car might not be wanted. But in Colorado it is, and I'll get that response and I can respond to it that way. So you'll see that. We see that with individuals all the time. So we run an offender, he might not be wanted in Illinois, but he could be wanted in Indiana. So how did we get that information when I ran him through Leeds? Because he also goes through the federal data, the national database, which is NCIC, goes to the national database. So that's how I get the hit from Indiana, even though I'm an Illinois officer. And vice versa. Indiana gets it from Illinois as well. So that's so to your point, if it happened in another state, and they put it in the system, if it crosses the license plate readers in DeKalb, and there's an NCIC hit for that person or that vehicle, we're going to get the hit.
Okay. And the other question is there anything in the policy that distinguishes between individuals and vehicles?
This is about vehicles here, if that's what you're asking.
Right, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the operator of the vehicle was involved in.
It doesn't, so in real time, let's say, we'll never know until we make the traffic stop if the person in the vehicle is the offender. So to your point,
We don't even know that.
well, yes, it depends on what type of crime it is. So let's just say it's a wanted subject. The plate comes back to the subject or the registered owner in this vehicle is wanted. All right, so you stop the vehicle now. If he's a male who's wanted and it's a female driver, then of course, you've already exhausted, the whole process of whether that's the offender. So a lot of times officers can run a plate and the registered owner can come back wanted, but it's a male, and now they see a female driver and she's the sole occupant, so they don't stop that vehicle. There's no need to stop that vehicle because the wanted subject is definitely not in the car. So
Not even if that would give you evidence of where you could find.
it could or couldn't, yeah, but the probable cause is for that subject though. It's for a male subject, and you have a female driver. She's not obligated to tell you where he is. Now, I'm just talking about a wanted subject. It depends on what it is, though. I mean, there's some crimes where that stop might still be made. If it's a traffic warrant, we're not going to make that stop unless we have probable cause to stop the vehicle in the first place. So if we're only basing it off the warrant, now if the car was speeding and the subject was wanted, we're going to make the stop, but the stop is really for speeding, and the driver's a female driver. She's definitely not the wanted subject. The wanted subject is a male. So now we can have that conversation with her and say, hey, just so you know that Sharon is wanted. She might say, well, I didn't know that. It's none of my business. At that point, as a law enforcement officer, what can we do if it's a minor offense? But now, if that car was wanted in a murder, homicide, let's say, and we're going to definitely stop that car because you got to think about the crime itself now. That crime compared to someone who's wanted for driving while suspended, they're not really apples to apples. So that felonious vehicle, that'll be put in as felonious vehicle. If that was one of homicide, they're going to want that car stopped. Those are going to be the criteria. The criteria will be in there. They'll be stop and hold every occupant of this vehicle based off of the homicide that occurred in the city of Chicago. See, that's how it'll read. And our officer will have that direction from the originating agency, which is CPD. We could do the same thing. We could put in a black BMW and we want, if you come across this car, we want it stopped and held for prints. We want it stopped and held, and every occupant held for investigation. So it could be that, but it depends on our investigation, what we put into that entry. So what I'm just talking about in your case, what we're talking about was just a regular, I ran the plate, the driver came back wanted, but it's a male for driving while suspended, the driver is a female. And if I have no other probable cause, then why am I stopping this young lady who is definitely not the wanted subject because it's a male? Now, if it's a male, I'm going to stop that car. But then I'm going to have interview him. He's going to have a driver's license. If it's not the subject who's wanted, then I have to release him because that's not the wanted subject. So you can't, but I would stop him because of the fact that it's a male. So you have to read all the particulars. So when the officers run a plate, they get a full screen, and it tells you wanted. Let's say Mark Johnson is wanted. Male white, 6'5", 240 pounds. So you see a gentleman driving his car, came back wanted. You stop that person. He's 5'3", 125 pounds. So you have to just look at the hit response, which we call it, and that's the lead's response from the warrant, and then we decipher if this is the person or not. And we do that every night. That's a nightly thing that goes on in pretty much most law enforcement departments, in any law enforcement department, they deal with that nightly. So.
Any other, yes, Joe?
Chief Burke, a couple questions.
Yep.
How many cameras were purchased? I was trying to find this information. I couldn't find out. Where are they going, and how did you choose the locations of where the cameras are going?
So we had a total of 6. So I believe we have 6, and the locations, of course, are all about the avenues of so we're looking at egress and ingress, and we want to see where most of the car volume is at and coming through, and also we look at some of our crime stats. So we had to look at that. That's one of the biggest parts of the LPRs to say, well, where are crimes occurring on a regular basis, and also we had to think about, like I said, the ingress and egress of vehicles, where most vehicles come out of, which avenue do they take to leave the city, which avenue do they take to come into the city, and then of course, what is the crime nexus to these areas. So, but like I said, at the end of the day, cars can leave the city of DeKalb a lot of different ways. So we had to think about, like I said, ingress and egress as well. And Joe, what was the other one I forget?
What are those locations? You never said where they were.
Where? So now this, at this point, we will not release locations, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because at the end of the day, criminals will learn that and avoid those areas. Totally destroys the purpose of this situation. Because at the end of the day, if there's these are speeding cameras, they identify the location. If these are red light cameras, they identify the location. So it gives people opportunity. Hey, look, you're being warned. There's a red light camera at this location. You see it all over the place. So you can try to avoid getting a citation. This is for criminal investigation. So do we really want people to avoid law enforcement when they committed a serious crime? See, that's the key to this. So we can't, at this point, give out locations, because basically what they'll do is try to avoid it. And it would be like, it would be if, you know, at the end of the day, if someone committed a homicide, well, don't go down this street because the police at the corner. So he'll go that way.
But they're not gonna be invisible, you'll be able to see them.
Well, but that's up to them to.
Yeah, they would have to do
They would have to do some homework.
Right.
I'm not gonna give them that on a platter, is all I'm saying, because it defeats the purpose of the deterrent and investigative capacity that the license plate readers will give us when dealing with criminal acts. So, you know, I'm not giving that location up, because at the end of the day, like you said, Mark, they can figure it out on their own. But I'm not going to tell them where the police are at. I mean, not with the mechanisms that this is used for. Red lights, I get it. Speeding cameras, I understand. You know, it basically gives everyone an opportunity to slow down before you get a citation. Slow down, or don't make that right on red, because you're going to get a citation. What we do not want is to let offenders, if someone kidnapped a child, to know that, well, don't go this way because you can avoid the police and you can continue on with this kidnapped child you have in the back seat, and you won't be detected by police if you take this route. So I'm not going to do that. I think that is against everything that the department, of course, holds dear, and of course the city of DeKalb and all the residents in the city of DeKalb. I'm speaking as a father. Now, if someone kidnapped my daughter, I don't want them to know what the license plate readers are. I don't, because at the end of the day, this might be my last chance to get her back from a dangerous offender. So why would we give them that
I
information?
assume they can be moved to different intersections. Let's say there's more activity, you could eventually move one of the cameras.
These are fixed. So,
Okay.
I mean, now, so to remove them, we have to
Okay.
completely.
You
Take
might
them
find
apart.
out that there's more crime here and say, might be better to move it over here.
Now you can do that if you have mobile. We have not purchased mobile license plate readers. So mobile license plate readers goes on vehicles.
Yeah, right.
So you probably see, you'll see that in some squad cars. We personally at the Cal Police Department did not buy those yet. Now they are effective, like you said. Now you can be mobile, so now a squad car can just regularly patrol and get hits. But that's what the tow companies are doing.
Yeah.
Not for the same purpose, of course, but their license, now we have access to that information. So it's a one-way street though. We have access to their information, but we're not giving them, because like I said, that's against the law to give them, that leads supported information, that law enforcement sensitive information, but they feed us. So that's what I was telling you about that one example about where we were able to find that car through the tow truck, that location, because they fed us, but we don't feed them, which is two different. It's a that's a one-way street. Joe, I mean.
Yeah, so based on the outline you just gave, it's a high probability that these are going to be installed disproportionately in a particular neighborhood in this city based on where crimes are occurring.
That was only one criteria though, Joe. So the other criteria was ingress and egress.
Right, your highways, your interstates, I understand
Some
that.
of the major boulevards, the major routes that are taken, like a Peace Road. Peace Road is a direct nexus to I-88. So it's not just criminal activity but it is about high volume, traffic volume. What is the easiest way to get out of DeKalb? We had to think about those things. What is the nexus to the expressway, which is a big way to escape when you commit a serious criminal act? I mean, we see that all the time. A lot of our offenders hit 88 and they go east and they get into a lot of them are from Aurora, from Chicago. So how are they getting to the city of DeKalb? That's just one way that they can travel out of the city of DeKalb. So, but Joe, the question is, did we look at criminal activity, of course we did. I mean, we had to. But we also looked at the egress and ingress of the city as well.
Do any of the cameras like pointing, will they catch any, let's say they're near a residence? Some intersections, you might have residences nearby where they're constantly pointing at that person's residence. Is activity at a particular residence going to be captured? Because we are taking photos, not just of the license plates, but of a wider view.
But it's
How will
only,
people be protected that live within proximity?
yeah, but it's only for, I mean, like I said,
Right.
it's only for vehicles and license plates. I mean, we're not, now, but that's like any other camera. We have safety cameras up for a lot of this stuff as well. But we go to, I mean, we deal with residents all the time. They pick up stuff on the neighbor's ring from across the street. So there's always going to be access. Now, of course, if it picks up a crime, we're going to act on it. But I mean, we're not there watching, Mr. Williams walk out with his groceries. I mean that's just and we're not going to get hit on these things. There's no one sitting up there looking at this monitor as well. So that's the other thing you got to remember, Mark. We're not, our TCs are doing all their regular business. They're not staring at this monitor to see what's going on. They're waiting for an audible signal that we have a hit. And that's what they're waiting on. They're not sitting there looking at a monitor to see what's going on the cameras. That's not happening.
What about information that's incorrectly put into the system? Do you have the ability to purge a bad lead, if you will?
Oh yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, so you're saying if another department got a
The
plate
license
wrong?
plate's off by one letter or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh, sure. But at the end of the day, but we also, I mean, it reads off partial plates anyway. So even if they have one character wrong, I mean, we still want that in the system. It just won't be an exact match, but it reads partial. So we could just have one character. I mean, it'll be a big pool if we're looking for every car with the first character as a C. Charles. I mean, that's a big pool of cars. I mean, that's going to be tough. But hopefully, the tail light configuration, the make and model, color will help us, filter that a little bit more. But to your point, like I'll give you an example, if the Cal Police Department put in a plate and it was wrong, and we knew the right character, we would go back in, of course, and correct it.
Well, thank you very much, Chief. I'm going to suggest we move on.
And we'll make, and we will, like I said, I know at the end of the day, we want you to have our completed policy, and that way everyone can take a read. And to your point, Mark, if there's something that you find that might not be, as far as clarification, clear enough, we can always go back and revisit and redo the policy if there are things that just don't seem to definitions. Maybe definition might be something that's not clear enough for just our everyday resident. I know when we get into policy, a lot of this is law enforcement lingo, and we know it like this. But I do understand that some residents might find that a little bit challenging to say, well, I don't know what that means. But we try to make sure that we identify the definitions exactly what we're saying. Like when we say a bolo, it's a be on the lookout, and be on the lookout for what? And then that's basically how it's entered.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
No, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Have fun watching your son.
Yeah. See if they get a win. They need a W. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much. To go back to item number one, I'll just very quickly summarize that. And that the city council did approve our recommendations to change, the language of the landlord tenant ordinances. They approved it on first reading, so it's now in effect. They're not going to go back and revisit that. They want to thank all of you for your work on that. For going through that, for parsing that language. And Scott has put together, he put up with me last Friday, we taped some Instagram messages that can be then sent out to tenants in DeKalb to let them know about the changes. That they ought to have a written lease within, a copy of their lease within a week of signing it. That you know, they have a right to get their damage deposit back, that they can't be charged for ordinary wear and tear. Just highlighting some of those things that the landlord can come, but you have to can visit, but you have to give 12 hours notice, those kinds of things. So some of the changes that we make are going to be made because, you know, the question is, well, you rewrite all this and you change all this, but who the heck knows about it and how? So I want to thank Scott for that. Next item.
Wait, a question.
Yes, sir.
Attached to the ordinance is a example, it says example lease. And I wonder, has anybody looked at that in the last 10 years? We didn't do anything with that.
Right. Honestly, I don't know.
And I wonder if we should look at it, or if we should ask the city attorney to look at it. Just
That's a good
to
question.
make sure it's consistent with what we.
Well, I think, and what we might do is we might speak to Dara as well and look and ask for some samples. If, you know, if they've updated that or it's more inclusive than it used to be or whatever.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. Could we take a look at that? You want to bring that up at our next meeting or?
Okay. I can bring back information on when the last time we.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, sure.
We, our next item, for several years, we have been talking about, you know, we've been trying to get anti-racism training, cultural literacy training through the police department for city employees or for all departments of the city. And, you know, and then in years past, that's been delayed because we've been told, well, yeah, that's a great idea, and you have a great, and this is a great presenter and so forth and so on, but we don't have the money in the budget. I want to make sure, I think we all want to make sure that that doesn't fall or hasn't fallen by the wayside, especially in a climate where any discussion of racism is being banned in states, is being banned in schools and so forth and so on. I dread saying anything like that approach upon our community. And so I asked Bill Nicholas to give us an outline of what's actually being done. And we have a representative from the police department this evening, if you'd like to talk to us about that. I also have some handouts that I can, or at least some explanation. I'll pass those around. Oh, we've got a couple here. Let's see. So. Anytime you're ready.
All right. So yes, from the police department perspective, you can pretty much see the complete list that was compiled and sent to the city manager's office in response to the question about the updated. Probably simplest to state that, you know, regardless of you know, the impact of budget and you know, staffing and so forth, that the police department has been able to, over the last 2 years, get every single officer through what's called the RIGHT training, the racial intelligence training education. It's specific for law enforcement. There's trainers that we have both in-house now and at NIUPD that put this on. So that's something that every officer has gotten. And that particular training, the RIGHT training, is now also taught at the academies. So new officers are getting it before they even come to us. So there's been a state mandate on the law enforcement side for cultural competency for a number of years now. You know, with the new Safety Act, there's some additional requirements for that, some kind of restructuring of training and so forth. But it has been a requirement for the last several years in law enforcement to have even modules of other types of training include a cultural competency portion of it. So, you know, even in, for example, like the lead homicide school, there's, which is like a 40-hour class, there's a segment that's devoted to that that relates to cultural issues and racial issues and so forth. So Again, I'm not going to read through the entire list, which you can see for your own, but it is pretty extensive as far as the additional cultural competency courses that the police department does. There have been in years past, citywide courses that the HR department and others have put on, for all city employees. But as far as the police department goes, we've always not only just met the minimum standards for cultural competency from the state, we've always exceeded them. And again, we're hopeful that, as staffing increases, we can do that even more. Again, at the state level with the state training board, there's a restructuring going on of different courses in order to make sure it's, explicitly stated as to what portions of the course, meet certain mandates as far as that goes. So again, that's just kind of an overall summary. The police department does belong to a monthly online training course, called Police Law, and it gives updates every year. And just that alone meets the minimum of the cultural competency standards that the state puts in. So again, that's once a month. Officers are required to log in. It's about maybe 45 minutes to an hour long course, and that's a topic that always kind of reappears. Again, it might be a standalone topic, or it might be embedded in different topics. But even if we did only that, it would have met the minimum standards. But again, we're proud to say, especially with that right training, that that's something that we've had every officer go through. And I can't speak so much for other city departments because I don't have that scope of knowledge. But
I will read this as well, I think, for the benefit of our audience, but we do have a list, a fairly long list of various training programs that the police department has been in, but I will read this as well. This is from Bill Nicholas, our city manager. I did a quick call around to the city departments, and here is what I found regarding cultural diversity training. Number one, the police department is bound under the SAFT Act of January 2021 to provide cultural diversity and de-escalation training on an annual basis. New officers must also receive such training in the police academy they attend, and that's what Officer Woodruff just discussed with us. Number two, the fire department instituted diversity training last year for all members following a series of social media posts from full-time firefighter/paramedic that were insulting to persons of color. This is expected to be an annual process. Such training requires overtime because firefighters on duty will not have time to thoughtfully undergo the training and testing while running the extraordinary number of ambulance calls they make on a daily basis now. 3, all employees must annually take state sexual discrimination training, which has a diversity module as well. 4, tangentially, the FOIA and Open Meetings Act Training Act required annually, including elected officials, touches on more subtle forms of discrimination, but diversity is not the core focus. But we do have a list for your perusal of what actually is being undertaken. So I want to make sure that it's not ignored. Did anybody want to address that, or yes?
Well, we did talk about diversity training for all employees.
Yes.
This is clearly not that. This talks about all employees have state sexual discrimination training. That's not what. So we need.
So we're talking about
to continue to push that.
So when you go to pay your water bill,
Right.
So when you're trying to get a building permit, so when you're trying, et cetera, yeah, that would be my question as well. Because we have, that is something that we've advocated for. So that's something I think we'll need to take up or consider at a later time. But, the question has always been a matter of money and how, and the police department and the fire department, that's been a real problem because you have to pay people overtime because, obviously those very shifts have to be covered. You have to have so many people out at squad cars and so forth, or making emergency calls. But it's also the will of this commission people that deal with the public, whether it's downstairs at the window or anywhere else, are also advised.
Well, the training I'm talking about, it did, I think, it was started.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was, but I didn't get enough, but I've given you what I got, but I
Yeah.
don't know what you think. Did anybody have any questions?
Have you found the training to be impactful, the things that you guys inserted over the last few years?
Yes, and you know, I know I referenced the right training, but, you know, I think that one really stands out as really being, you know, thoughtfully considered, not just in the material, but the audience, you know, because, and again, I certainly understand, you know, this committee's, you know, desire to have kind of a citywide, you know, for all city employees, but obviously what we do is very unique and really above and beyond, you know, your ordinary, you know, citizen encounter. So, you know, for that reason, yeah, I really think that it has been impactful. I also think that it helps, you know, having a couple of our officers that have gone through the training, and it just helps that buy-in a little bit, that this isn't just somebody coming from somewhere else, and this is, you know, kind of what they believe. It is their own people, and our own officers, and this is what we subscribe to, and these are the, you know, ideals that we want to follow.
Any pushback?
Oh, any pushback? No, not at all.
Chief Leverton, I want to highlight this as well. Some of the things on the others here. Command staff and city leaders that took an 8-hour course titled Racial Intelligence Training. I'm looking for something else I'm missing right now. In particular, 3 officers attended an 8-hour class titled Communication with Aggressive, Mentally Ill, and Emotionally Disturbed Individuals. And there's other indications here that officers have received advanced training in de-escalating situations. Thank you very much.
These classes, can the public view these classes? I assume you said they were online, right?
Well, it's an online subscription.
A subscription, okay, I wasn't sure if they were readily available.
No, it would be law enforcement, you know, sensitive as far as that goes. Every single officer has an individual login as far as that goes. So I'm not sure. I know some training academies and even some training boards will post kind of the syllabus, if you will, but not necessarily, you know, every detail of it. But, you know, so, you know, I understand that is your question, you know, to be able to kind of review, like, well, what are these primary topics, again, for, you know, curriculum that is administered by others, you know, that would probably be their responsibility, you know, as far as like this, you know, right training that I've spoken to, you know, we wouldn't have the issue, you know, if there was a, you know, direct question or whatever, to be like, hey, what, you know, what is this about? Sure, because it's not a secret as far as that goes, but I mean, there are some components at times that could have some, you know, law enforcement sensitivity to it, so.
Thank you very much, Chief. No other questions? Last item, thank you. Last item has to do with our meeting times. Lisa wasn't able to, said she wasn't able to make it tonight because she has a commitment at 4:30 on the first Tuesday of the month. And is very upset, or was rather upset about the change in time. As I recall, and you're not happy either. You want to go ahead? Go ahead.
Well, I, you know, because I can speak for Lisa as well as
Sure.
myself. And I have a myriad of things I would like you to think about. First of all, I've never been on a committee that meets and not been consulted about what my time is. And I think 4:30 sends a message out to a lot of people that work that can't come and talk to us. That's what we're about. You know, we like to have a lot of people come and talk. And 4:30 is not conducive to many, many people that work, but 6 o'clock is, 6 o'clock was. And also, you know, finding out on Friday that we changed the meeting to this was a little disconcerting for both Lisa and I. And I also think possibly we should think about the message that it sends, because what if somebody wants to serve on this committee that works? They couldn't do the 4:30. And so you're limiting a group of people that's assembling for diversity and serving the community are not everybody. So, you know, someone would say, well, you know, that 4:30 is fine with me, I'm retired, but, you know, where's the diversity? If we are just going to meet at 4:30, people are still at work. And it limits who's gonna come here. And I'm here because I don't want it limited to who could come here. And I just think that there were a lot of things that both Lisa and I feel uncomfortable with because we didn't even have a say. We didn't even have, there's such a thing as an email. It doesn't have to be, you know, wait till the next meeting. It could, you know, this has been brought up, what does everybody think? And I just felt that it was, I don't know, I don't want to pick the wrong word, but it's a word that I don't like, and it's just not right, in my opinion. So it's a lot of different things.
If I could add to that, and I don't mean to contradict you at all. My recollection, A, I don't want to contradict you at all. B, I don't want to blame the person who's not in the room. But we had a conversation at our last meeting, and a question came up, and I think we had a question. Yes, we had a question come up about whether is there a reason we need at 6:30? I think it was Josh said. Well, all the other city commissions, committees, meetings, and so forth and so on, board customarily meet at 4:30. Is there a reason we couldn't do that? Or is there a reason anybody here? And Andre wasn't able to be here,
I
but
was not here
You weren't
either.
here either.
So
No,
what
no.
I'm saying is
let me
email.
just finish. So our discussion was, well, you know, and I said, oh, I'm retired. It doesn't, you know, one time isn't any more convenient to me. I expected Lisa to have an issue because she works till 4:30, and but she said something to the effect of, well, I could be there a little later or something like that. But in any case, no vote was taken, no decision was made. That's my memory. The possibility came up, and I think, unfortunately for Scott, I think Josh may have jumped the gun because I was taking these Instagram about the landlord tent on Friday. And I said to Scott at the time, well, I'll see you Monday evening. He said, no, I said 4:30. I said, really? You know, really? Because apparently that's when it was posted. And you know, it has to be posted so many days in advance and so forth and so on. But I don't want you to think that I made or that a vote was taken or that any decision was made to you know, exclude people. It came up as an item of conversation, but that's all it was.
Well,
Yeah, if the reminder hadn't come, I wouldn't have even noticed that.
I wouldn't have either, honestly.
Earlier,
And that's
and
not
then I
fair.
said to myself, did I miss the last meeting? Because I didn't remember
Yeah.
discussing.
and I'm not sure that I can, because I was not here, but I have spoken to Lisa, and, you know, I don't know if that's what she recalls
Sure.
having said, and perhaps the language could get a little misconstrued, and perhaps maybe she said, if I knew in advance, I could get myself
That
here.
sounds about right.
Okay, so that's
That
a
sounds
whole,
about-
so that's all, and that's why I'm saying, because I've spoken to
Sure.
her, and that's a whole different ballgame than just getting something on Friday that says it's at 4:30, and like Norton said, I mean, if I didn't like glance on, what's this all about? And I don't think that that's right.
Well, I don't disagree. If you know, those of you that, since we already approved the minutes for our last meeting, there's nothing in the minutes that says that was you know, that was acted upon.
And I think it's really important that we are available when most people are. And I've even seen some people out here having a response to the fact that 4:30 is tough for some people to get here. And so we don't want to just talk to people that are retired and can like get here at 4:30. And I certainly wouldn't want to lose a person like Lisa King. to
No,
be on the
right.
committee, or somebody else that would bring in a different perspective than perhaps some of us.
Sure.
It just doesn't make sense to me. So,
So my suggestion, and along with having this discussion tonight, was to, to go and kind of do this correctly. Now, the council did approve the scheduled meeting, so meeting time on the master scheduled meetings for 2022 says 4:30. But we can change it.
Yeah.
Just let me, hear me out. So in addition to, we can't take action tonight because it wasn't on the agenda, so we amended the agenda after this discussion. I propose that on the next agenda, we have an item setting the time. If we want, we can have a special meeting at the later time of what it used to be, and then we can take a formal vote, change the time, and then the council will change it to back to 6 o'clock or whatever you would like.
but you don't see an issue with you guys set a whole thing and never spoke to, never, I mean, there's an issue there.
I completely recognize that.
As Lisa and I were, who's the they that made this decision when we're the group? Who, and why? And what, it's just, it doesn't look good. It's
Sure,
not a good look.
Sure, I understand, and I think what we had here was a case of one staff liaison shifting to another. Maybe Josh thought, I would assume, that I was going to tell people. I assumed that there had been some communication. When he told me it was already going on a council agenda, I assumed that there must have been discussion. So at the passing of the baton was run. And I apologize for that. It was not.
No.
There was never talk of let's rush this through before they can say anything. My proposal is that we go and do it the right way now. But yeah, with transition sometimes things get lost in the juggle.
So does that mean that our next meeting is going to be at 4:30 until the city council changes its schedule?
We can do a special meeting at 6 that night, cancel at 4:30.
Okay.
Do it at 6, and then we set the new time for 6 o'clock. Then it will go to the council at the end of March, and then April's time should be back to 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I think that might
I would like
I
to see
move that
that
we cancel the
regularly
regular scheduled March meeting.
at 4:30.
And that we have a special meeting it's 6:30. At 6:30 on March.
6:30 was our old time.
Yeah.
Would you prefer 6:30 to 6? Again, it doesn't, I agree that I want people, I want citizens and everybody else to be able to come to these meetings if they have something that they want to bring up, sure.
I don't care about 6 versus 6:30.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, it's nicer it's nicer to all of us to be able to get this done earlier, so we can have dinner or whatever,
Well, I can't speak for Josh or for Scott. I think, when city staff attend these meetings, if they start their work at 8, they get done at 4:30, and depending on travel time or where they live and so forth and so on, if there's 2 hours to hang around and so forth, I could understand why 4:30 was
Yeah.
preferred, okay, although I don't think that's, I agree with Nadine that that excludes a lot of people in this country.
But then I'll let my motion that we meet on March 1st at 6,
Okay,
and we can discuss whether we want it to be 5:30 or 6:30 or 6 or whatever.
okay, great.
That's great.
So you want to make that
I
motion?
think that,
Is there a second for that? Second by Nadine. Any further discussion?
Yes, but again, I apologize for all the confusion. And we'll write this. I think it was the same thing that you thought that maybe you guys were waiting around. Like, oh, I wish this, since the other commissions meet at 4 o'clock, and thought you just moved too fast.
Josh said they did it for John Walker, that he couldn't make the 4:30, so that's when they moved it to 6.
Oh, really?
That's what he said. He said it was at 4:30, but John
I
Walker
don't ever remember.
worked for UPS.
I've been on this commission for 30 years, and we've met at 6:30.
Yeah, I've been on it for a long time too, and that's my experience too.
Is there any way that I could ask you or Joe, or I'll do it if you give me the emails, but you know, I'd like Lisa to be able to get this in an email and have it solid right away. You know that this, you know, it won't be at 4:30.
Oh, sure.
You know,
Is
just so that it's
March
more-
1st, that's the first Tuesday on?
If you'd like to, I can call her too. You know.
I mean, I'm going to talk to her tonight.
Okay, great.
I just think it might be nice to have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me just alert you, you mentioned a couple times about email, and under the Open Meetings Act, we can't discuss things.
Okay.
But
This
you can
meeting
talk-
is being
You're not
videotaped,
told
so
Yeah,
it's posted, these meetings are posted on the website, so, or Facebook, so anybody can come back and watch.
we didn't have a vote on canceling the meeting and then schedule this special meeting. So we had a motion made and we had it seconded, but all those in favor, please say aye.
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 One other thing.
Yes, sir.
I just looked at the website because I was curious about it, and it still was John Alford, and not
Okay.
Andre. We also are supposed to have 7 members and 6. You know what the name
I don't.
I know some other commissions have vacancy, they should have nominated or offered, appointees.
is? Oh, well, we could do that. Oh.
No, I think.
But we should discuss that next time.
Okay. Well, we've never actually recommended candidates. I mean, I suppose we can. The mayor can ignore it if he chooses to.
Right.
I'll call for a motion to adjourn. So moved, second. Second. All right. Thank you very much.